Okay, let's hear from Caterpillar now. Tim Glaue is visiting from beautiful Metro Peoria, and Tim is responsible for Caterpillar's technical communities of practice and knowledge management programs driving culture, standard work processes, and technologies that help grow the breadth and depth of sustainable competency, skills, and knowledge. Tim created and developed Caterpillar's current Knowledge in the Flow program. Since 2006, Tim's experience at Caterpillar has included technical lead positions within integrated powertrain systems, advanced planning for validation, and most recently, the Mossville, Illinois Technical Information Center's team for knowledge management. Tim has more than 30 years of multifaceted work, first starting out at a small sheet metal manufacturing firm before accepting increased design responsibilities at companies like Komatsu, Rockwell Collins, and General Motors prior to Caterpillar. Tim's most recently held a 15-year industrial advisory board membership at Purdue University's Computer Graphics and Technology and Purdue Polytechnic Institute before vacating to serve on the IKAA's board of directors in 2019. Tim has been awarded for innovations in knowledge-based engineering and has knowledge-based programming background, including languages like Lisp, Intent Definer Language, Knowledge Fusion, Java, and HTML. So Tim, let's hear from you.
So hopefully everyone can hear me. Yes, good. So I just want to thank the Academy for just allowing me to be here and all my producers and my peers and everything like that. And oh, okay. I was going to, don't take me off the stage yet. I want to talk about my mom. Okay. So wow, it's exciting to be here, isn't it? To be at this conference and to be able to enjoy this time together and have networking and peering. Unfortunately, for some reason, my song did not come up. So what's the deal, Brittany? Where are you? I wanted to talk about my song, which was Cool Mo D, Knowledge is King. That was supposed to be my song today. But anyways, with Cool Mo D, he was a guy that was part of the Treacherous Three. So he's a rapper, you know, and he actually before, I think in the 1980s, was the one that had the most rhyme and rap ever during that time. So, but the idea here is that even with that, he was actually putting assessments in for, you know, what's the best rappers and what's the best rap songs and so forth like that, right? So the idea of measuring and grading, it seems kind of important, doesn't it? And I think you would agree with me that the knowledge management needs have, if it doesn't already, needs a more rigorous approach for measuring and grading decisions. So somebody might have asked me, for instance, like, how in the world did you ever get to be in this job, all right? How did you ever get to this point? I don't know if I can, is this actually working? Okay, now you can hear me, right? Okay, good. So to be able to get a job and to be up here and present like this is kind of cool, you know, and just to get that opportunity to be there. And I don't know why they would select me. Maybe they had a list or something, like these guys that are professionals and said, you know, but I would probably be more at the bottom of the list, so I don't know how I even got selected and everything, but I appreciate being here. But being a closing speaker, you know, it's like, for somebody like me who's been here and it's like you've got this long length of time and everything like that that's required, and you know, when I speak a lot, I speak for longer lengths of time, and so that's probably not the right idea next time if somebody wants to have a conference speaker to pick me as the closing speaker, but we'll do my best. So one thing about Sanjay Dahl, remember him this morning, and Craig Brown? So Sanjay said this morning. He said, it's kind of like space, right? Going to outer space. Well, when you put me up here, it's kind of like going past Jupiter, you know, and you see this big ball of gas out there. It's made up of hydrogen. You don't want to light that hydrogen up, right? Because, you know, it might explode, or even if it's made of helium, where I'm talking too high level. I'm that kind of a guy. I talk at a high level about a lot of things. So the point here is that we finally want to get in all seriousness. I want to get to the next thing. So I got a clicker here. I got to click this thing, right? So where's my presentation at? There's a different one? Is it this one? Oh, awesome. There we go. So my presentation today is called Going for Green, Embracing the Red. So I want to make a quick disclaimer. I'm here in representation of IKAA today and not as much about Caterpillar. So in the context of that, I just want to make sure that everybody understands that this is from my personal experience and doesn't maybe directly relate to what Caterpillar might have me to present. Well, I want to give you a warning that this presentation might cause bouts of laughter and occasional, laughing while informing the need for the knowledge aware technique. So if you want to laugh at me, that's quite all right. I'm good with that. All right. And some of you are from, who's from California? Is there anybody here from California? I just want to put an added warning in there that when I drink the Kool-Aid, I use paper straws and not plastic ones, so, all right. I'm just saying. Okay. All right, sound judgment. So when I talk about sound judgment, what does that mean to you? What does sound judgment mean to you? Anybody got any ideas? This is kind of like more of an open session. Any ideas on what you think sound judgment means to you? Yeah, facts is good, right? Facts is one thing. What's another thing that would be an embodiment of good decisions, good decision making? Experience is really important, right? Because of the things that we talked about this morning, all right? Both Craig and Sanjay both talked about that experience. They said, experience sometimes is something that we learn from in order to make the best decisions forward. So it's kind of like when you're lowering risks in decision making. So if you want to look up a word, I would look up a word called if I can even say this, perspicacity, which is defined as an acute mental or vision for discernment, the ability to understand things quickly and make accurate judgments. Okay? So these are the things that we want to do for sound judgment. And what I wanted to propose to you is this idea that we want to be able to measure sound judgment, don't we? At the point of use, at where this knowledge is being delivered to, these consumers, these people that use this knowledge, all right, we want to be there and understand the types of decisions that they're making and then how they get reverberated back into the system. And I would like to say that I believe sound judgment can be measured. It can be measured. And if we look at both green, in this case I'm going to signify green as being agreeable. It's an agreeable situation. I deliver knowledge into a situation. Is that response that we get back, it's the same as what I expected, then that's green. But if it's red, I'm not saying red is bad. We mentioned that also today. Craig mentioned that. Like red isn't necessarily bad. It's just different than what we expected. And that red can be something from, I expected this and I got something totally different. And there's usually two outcomes for that. Okay, one outcome is that from a person's perspective, from a consumer perspective, that maybe they just made the wrong decision. I remember when I came from General Motors and worked for Caterpillar, I had a lot of this experience I brought to the table, but it wasn't Caterpillar's experience. It was something that I needed to adjust to and learn in the point of the applications that were being used, the processes that needed to be followed. So it wasn't necessarily aligned. And so this was an opportunity for me to learn and have that education. Okay? Another one actually comes from knowledge change in itself. So sometimes we have somebody that has a lot of that experience that you talk about, and they're putting that knowledge in, and maybe that knowledge, in a sense, that was different than what we expected, needs to change the knowledge in of itself. And so now we put that back in the system. We evaluate that within our COPs, within our knowledge communities, and then we put that back into the flow. So it kind of looks like this. So you have this knowledge consumer, all right? And once again, that knowledge consumer is the key. It's the key to everything. And what I want to unpack for you today is this idea that people, all right, is just as important as the knowledge. Because if we're capturing that knowledge today, and we're doing that right here in this conference, aren't we? We're talking about, and Navistar talked about that, General Motors is talking about that, Bosch is talking about that, or it wasn't Bosch, was it? It was BorgWarner, sorry, BorgWarner Morris was talking about that. And so what they're talking about is this is how we deal and manage with knowledge. But what about that knowledge for the future? What are we going to do about that? Those people that you're working with now, 5 years from now, might be in a different location. They might be a promoted person. They might be maybe retired in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever. So what are we doing to build into the workforce today, the succession, the people, those that have that technical knowledge, how are we building into them that next generation of knowledge expertise? How's that going? We want to be thinking about the knowledge consumer. And that measurement of whether it's green or red, we'll talk about that here in a second. So we want to get that fed back into the system and into our knowledge communities, our technical communities, our communities of practice, however you want to describe that, or formalized groups that can assess that knowledge and be able to determine whether or not it's good or it's not as good, and then put that back into the cycle, into the flow. And the value out, like I said, comes in those two different things, which is related to either the consumer needs to have some sort of behavioral modification, and maybe it's not, but, or the knowledge needs to change. So what I want to talk about here is this idea that this knowledge delta. We talk about decision risk at the point of use. What does that mean? Okay, how do I know I have a high risk situation or I have a low risk situation? We want to understand that aspect. When I talk about pulling data off of our machines, okay, that's great. We pull data off our machines, but what I like to do is I like to kind of hack into that stream of data, and I want to put in this assessment capability, that something like what AROS might provide, and I want to bring that in as well so that I can start, when that data actually comes in, I don't have a huge flat file full of tons of data, that actually automatically already starts to prioritize what are those things that are at the top and what are those things that are not, so that when I'm tending to those red things, those things that are different than what I expected, and I'm looking at that from a technical or a community of practice perspective, so that then I can make filter judgment very quickly on the things that really matter the most. Now, sometimes it's do nothing too, right? Because there is no change that needs to be made. Let me show you an example of what that means. So here we have, this is a parking lot outside the bowling alley that I go to in Peoria, Illinois. All right, and this is something where they have parking lot across the street, and behind me is the bowling alley. It has an off-track betting parlor for some of you that like that sort of thing. Don't know. And so you can see what the design intent was here, right? You can either go left or you can go right to cross the road, but that's not what people are doing. The behavior is that people are going straight across. You can tell by just the way that the grass is kind of like, being worn out to the dirt there. Now, what's wrong here? Okay, is there anything wrong? Probably not. But there's this delta divide that you can see. What I want to say here, and what the key thing to get away from this is to say that it's not bad whether it's green, it's not bad whether it's red. The difference between the two, did we know and did we expect that behavior or not? I think what we want to learn now for those people into the future, those future knowledge streams, those future knowledge practitioners and experts, we want to know that delta difference between the two, right? Those are the things we want to discover, and we want to discover them now, so that the next time we go through that we're putting that knowledge into the pack, not just the knowledge of how to make a sidewalk and go across the street, but the knowledge that says this is the difference that also you need to be considering. What are all those consideration factors that make good, sound judgment and good, sound decisions? Now, I always like talking about safety, and I'll talk about safety in a minute and a little bit more, but safety is really important as part of this. And there is an option to the right with a traffic light and all that so that people get across safety. So the triangle path in this instance is not bad, it's just different than what is expected. And this is what you're going to see with the AROS tool. You're going to see this in the assessments that you're doing. And this is something that's useful across your organization. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the tools, and this tool can be in any tool you're using. You're making these decisions at the point of use. So we have this agreeable condition, this behavioral change, and this knowledge change aspect, okay? So agreeable condition is when the knowledge consumer response matches the design intent, procedure, process within an acceptable tolerance. We're not asking it to be ideal and perfect. We're just saying within an agreeable tolerance, there it is. Some of you like using yellow as well, which is fine. You could put maybe even more of a gradient in there. Now the behavioral change when the knowledge consumer response does not match the intent or procedure process, we're into a red state. And the resulting response adversely affects future human cognitive effort. Cognitive being, how much brain matter you need to be able to make those decisions. The intensity, and what you're imparting onto your organization from a sensitivity perspective, can change as we start to look at this ahead of the game. Now, knowledge change also happens where you need a knowledge change but the resulting response positively affects human cognitive effort. Those are the things we want to discover and find, and then adjust our knowledge accordingly, because we want the best at what those decisions can offer. We want to be able to deliver knowledge to the point of use so that those that are making those decisions aren't pulling it out of the seat of their pants trying to figure out what to do, that they're getting the right and the best and the most appropriate knowledge that helps inform that decision so that I'm reducing rework, I'm reducing warranty downstream, okay? We don't want to have those kind of spills that are kind of going on and on and on downstream. We want to figure that out at the point of use. Now, the metric that I want you to consider here is how do I develop and design my programs to address this, okay? What you want to be thinking about here is you want to be saying, what are those things that's going to close that knowledge gap in a quick and a nimble fashion? How fast can I make that decision understood here when I'm off the tracks a little bit? Can I close those things so I have a system that can discover when I'm in a red state versus a green state? We want that discovery to be nimble and quick. And that's what I focus on when I'm thinking about these programs. When somebody comes to a project and says, I want to maybe do this project, what do you think? I think about a couple things. One is I think about, is it something that is specifically channeling me into one tool or to maybe a set of procedural things? What's going on there? Is it something like this? Is it something that's going to help me grow my team and my people? Those are the things I like to consider in this. Here's an example, right? You've probably seen a picture out there like this. Here we have a situation, and they're looking at design plans and saying, I think we didn't do something right here. We don't want to enter into this kind of situation, do we? I think what we'd rather have is something that's a little bit more aligned, and I apologize for my Photoshop abilities here, but it's trying to get the point across, right? We want to have this type of situation up front. We don't want to enter into that at the last minute, and then all of a sudden we have warranting conditions. Here's some safety. So here we have an old 1970s video that I grabbed this picture from related to safety. So what you have here is on the right-hand side, you have some workers that are working on this mini track type. They're adjusting and doing something with the undercarriage. You have the supervisor in front of the machine, and they're working with maybe the foreman there. All of a sudden, at the same time when they're adjusting that, the track comes undone, and this guy here almost gets hurt. So the situation here is that somebody was working on that track. They were releasing the track, and it came undone, and almost hit the person that was standing in front of the machine. Not good. We don't want those type of situations. So what can we be doing in our procedures? So and what's our behavioral and knowledge change in this kind of environment? We don't want to have a situation where somebody almost gets hurt or we have a near-miss situation, okay? Very important. How about college students? I think it would have been better if maybe they took a right and had a better plan here, okay? College students do weird and funny things sometimes. Not belaboring the point, maybe this is the best way of doing it, but this is interesting that, what are all the things that could go wrong? Do you ever think about that up front? I'm sure a lot of things can go wrong. I think it would be better if we had a situation to where they had a plan and they maybe had a truck. I bet you they're going to put that on top of their car, maybe tie it up with some bungee cord. I don't know. That's what they typically do. So some things like, for instance, there's this person that had run over an animal in the road. It was somebody that really loved animals and was really unfortunate that they did that and was really distressed. Was on the center of the road crying over this little baby bunny on the road, right? And this lady came up and saw this guy in the middle of the road with a car parked on the side, like, what's going on there? What's happening? There's something wrong. Let me pull over and find out. Sir, what's wrong? You look distraught. Something's wrong there. And he says, I don't know. I ran over this baby bunny and I don't know what to do. I love bunnies. I think I got the solution for you. So she goes back to her pink Cadillac. She opens up the trunk. She rifles through some boxes. She gets a can out of there. She goes up there and she sprays the roadway where this bunny is at, right? And the bunny starts doing this. It starts unflattening, coming up. It starts getting really perky. And the guy's looking at her like, what in the world? And it goes off the side of the road, turns around and waves. and then goes down a little bit further and waves some more, and then goes off and hops over the fence into the field and waves some more. He says, that's kind of weird, but what'd you do? He says, well, it's really easy. I work for Avon. Here, check out this can. It says hairspray. Adds permanent wave. Good for dead hair. Okay. But the knowledge delta, so stories are important, right? I just gave you a story. Stories are important in being able to share knowledge, right? Do we do that? Do we actually put that into our conversations, into our presentations? Kind of reminds me of my daughter. I don't know, a lot of you probably have children, right? And do you ever raise your children like in a way where when they're younger, you're like, man, I always have to spank this kid. What's going on? You know, he's slapping them, trying to say, you know, on the bottom and saying, hey, what's going? You know, you're doing the wrong thing. I mean, maybe you have paddles. I don't know what. Maybe you're doing more of a timeout thing. So yeah, so what I try to do with my daughter, she's now 15, and so when she gets to this age where I can't do that anymore, what I'm trying to instill in her is I'm trying to get her to think. I sit down with her when something goes wrong. I said, now what were you thinking when you thought about that? You know, she knows I love her. So what were you thinking? Well, I don't know, Dad. My brother, he was just making me angry. Oh, okay. Well, did you really need to slap him or hit him across the head like that? Was that really the right way to react to that system? Well, I guess not. But so, what do you think you would do better next time? I think I would hit him harder so that he doesn't need. So he does it. So you don't even in a place where you don't even notice. Okay. Now that's not the behavior we want, right? We want to start thinking about this consumer, the behaviors that they have. You know, they're golden to us. They're golden to our system. How do we protect it? How do we measure and get that information out of them and put that into our systems so that we can adjust to it? So this Delta model is a closed-loop cycle visual that we're talking about. It's addition to the knowledge-aware cycle that we've been talking about. But what I want you to think about is how do we get people the need and the part of how people can come along in that journey? How are we growing our people as we're starting to work with knowledge in this conference? How we're doing that within our teams, within our organizations. How do we think about people along in that journey? Are we growing them as well? Or are we just giving them the answers? Okay? If there's something like that where we have a situation to where maybe they didn't do something the way that we expected them to, what are we putting into our systems to sit down with that individual, or maybe have a mentoring support thing, or maybe we put them on that project's coming up in 2 months, and we put them on that project and say we're going to be monitoring specifically for this differentiated skill that you need to develop, because we need to be thinking about that. I don't want to in our company, I don't want to sit in a situation to where we have somebody that's grown up through this community and they have this technical capability now and they're looked at as being a senior person, and yet they've missed maybe a couple of really key things in that growing up period, in that part to where they got to that point, right? What are we doing now to make sure, and I think this knowledge-aware model really helps us to understand that. So people mature and grow. Whether it's knowledge consumers or knowledge communities, you can grow in these things, okay? So one more warning for you. Consumption of alcoholic beverages impairs your ability to make sound judgments while driving your car or operating machinery. So if you're planning on doing that later, just keep that in mind. All right, so it was just a challenge. This is kind of what's in my mind as far as the future, what's coming, okay? The future of knowledge management is going to no longer be knowledge management in a sense. It's going to be more knowledge-aware focused versus knowledge management. I mean, knowledge management is something we have to do, right? But it's the knowledge-aware capability that we're trying to do. So I'll open that up to any questions. Anybody have any questions for me? Anything about knowledge-aware or the Delta model, or how we might be able to put this into place within our companies? Okay, well, my contact information's out on the app. You can get a hold of me. I'm interested also in benchmarking. If you have a company that hasn't benchmarked with us yet, we're always interested in doing that. We've done that with a few of you already in this group, but thank you very much.